Pregnant women, new mothers and children under 6 cannot be refused treatment at South African public hospitals. That's whether the patient has identity papers or not. This right has been confirmed by the Gauteng High Court, which also ruled that a 2020 Gauteng health policy that denied care to this group was unlawful. I'm joined now by Mbali Baduza, a legal researcher at the organisation Section 27. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that Section 27 took this matter forward and you got a group of people together to fight this. So I wonder if you could take us back to this policy and what it actually led to, because you had at least 2 people who'd been denied the right to healthcare with some fairly dire consequences.
Good evening, Sally, to you and your viewers. Yes, so in May of 2020, the Gauteng Department of Health released a policy that had the effect of discriminating against certain categories of people. These include asylum seekers, persons without documents, and people who are stateless. Consequently, what that meant is that when pregnant women or lactating women and children under the age of 6 presented themselves at a hospital requiring care, they would have to first produce a documentation and or pay up to 15,000 Rand upfront and in full before they can be seen. This led to dire consequences for their health and well-being.
So is this essentially against the Constitution? What did the court find?
So the court confirmed what already existed in our law in terms of the National Health Act, which entitles all pregnant women and lactating women, as well as children under the age of 6, to have access to free healthcare services in all public health facilities, including hospitals. So the significance of this order is to confirm that legal right, which is in line with the Constitution.
So how does the Gauteng Department of Health come up with a policy that's clearly contravening their own government rules and the Constitution? I mean, what does this suggest about what is going on in our health departments to come up with something that's against our own laws and pretty xenophobic?
I don't want to speculate, Sally, but what we know is that we launched our case in May 2022, and the state opposed the case in July. And after not providing an answer to our papers, we entered into a case management with the Judge Deputy President Sutherland of the Gauteng High Court. And as a result of those talks and meetings, the state withdrew its case. And eventually the parties were engaged together and came up with an agreement, which is this court order. The only difference was in relation to the timelines on when to reissue a new circular. And also the judge issued a structural order, which requires the state to report back in October of this year. So that's what we know. The state has not answered our case.
And also it's quite interesting that the court says posters have to be put up to make it absolutely clear that mothers can get this care, so they shouldn't be frightened away by a gruff nurse who doesn't look too friendly. Those posters have got to be up saying you are entitled to free care at any South African hospital. You don't have to pay a deposit and you don't have to show us any papers. Is there, and I'm not sure if this is something Section 27 can answer, but is there a growing anti-foreigner sentiment in our hospitals here in South Africa? And I'm thinking back to the Limpopo Health MEC. I think it was Poppy Ramathuba who castigated that woman in hospital, saying, you're coming over our borders, you're taking up our beds, we can hardly look after our own. Something which did resonate with quite a lot of South Africans. But do you think that there's a growing anti-foreigner sentiment in our hospitals?
Not only in our hospitals, but in our clinics as well. We have received a number of complaints from migrant persons saying that they have been refused even basic or primary healthcare services. We also know of vigilante groups acting unlawfully there is this growing sentiment that is targeted at foreign nationals, scapegoating them for problems that are systemic within the South African public health care system, and that should be the focus instead of targeting innocent and vulnerable people.
Yeah, no, for sure. The order says along the lines, entitled to free health services at any public health establishment, irrespective of nationality, documentation. And then it goes on to say, unless, and this is important, unless they are members or beneficiaries of a medical aid, fair enough, or they've come to South Africa for the specific purpose of obtaining healthcare. Now, we know that people do cross our borders to come and give birth because despite the problems we face, we still offer some level of care. So how do you prove, how would a pregnant woman coming for help prove that she's not there just to give birth? And the other side of it, how do you prove someone hasn't come there? I don't understand that part of it. What is your understanding of that clause?
So that clause comes from the Immigration Act. There are different visas in which you can use to come into the country, and one of them is a medical visa, where you specifically come to South Africa for medical purposes, and that's what that section is referring to. But yes, as you point out, Sally, it's quite a difficult position to find ourselves in, but that's the work of immigration. The healthcare system should do what it does best, and that is to cater and heal our society, and shouldn't take on the role of immigration officers when they don't have the skills or knowledge to do so.
And this is the problem, is that other sections of government are not doing their job. We've got porous borders, so we have undocumented foreigners coming over. Some of them may well be pregnant and desperate for good medical care if they can't get it in their own country. And then the crunch tends to come at certain hospitals, not all, and I do believe that the issue and the problem is overstated. But this inevitably leads to people in South Africa, South Africans, saying, we have so little, our healthcare service can barely cope. Why should foreigners be looked after? It's a brutal response, but it comes of desperation. What is your response to those people who are having to queue at government hospitals, who are feeling the pinch?
Yeah, it's a very good question and something that we've had to grapple with in trying to understand how to locate different rights in a situation of scarce resources. But the truth is, Sally, our public health care system is failing. It's failing all of us. And that's where the crunch is, where there's corruption, misaligned policies, good policies that are not implemented. A shortage of staff, senior management. We're talking about a chronic illness within our public healthcare facility that affects everyone, including South Africans.
Yeah, you're quite right. And just to make the point, this issue dealt with what happened in the Gauteng Department of Health, because it was the Gauteng Department of Health that issued this policy, which was unlawful. But my understanding, and please confirm, this is countrywide. This is actually making it very clear that this is against the laws of our country, not just in Gauteng.
100%. It's against our national law and our constitution, and therefore this order confirms that throughout the country, all pregnant and lactating women and children under the age of 6 have the right to access free healthcare services at all levels.
All right. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Much appreciated. That was Mbali Baduza. She's a legal researcher at Rights Organisation Section 27.